Hey, how often do you study English? Always? Sometimes? Never? Rarely? Usually? All right, today let's practice asking and answering how often questions. Let's go. In today's lesson, we are going to be practicing making questions. We're going to be practicing making and answering how often questions. So, a how often question, what does that mean? So, a how often question means that we want to know the frequency of something. I want to know how many times or the frequency of some event. For example, I asked at the beginning of this lesson, how often do you study English? So I want to know the frequency of your studying. Are you studying always? Are you studying sometimes? Are you studying never? So if I want to know how many times or the frequency of your action, I will ask a how often question. Before we get into the grammar and before I teach you how to make these questions, I want to make sure I tell you, please watch this video until the very end because in this video, you will be making questions and you'll be answering questions. So in this video, it's kind of like a bonus lesson. It's a 2-for-1 lesson because you can practice asking questions and you'll practice answering questions. So first, let's look at how we can make the question. Now, making this question is not that difficult. All we need to do is how often do you, and then we're going to think of our verb. Now, of course, the subject can change. I can say, how often do you? How often do we? How often do they? If I said he or she, I'll be doing how often does he or how often does she, right? And then after that, we will add our verb. So in the first question, I asked everyone, how often do you study English? Now, if I change that to a he or she, then my question would be, how often does he or how often does she study English? Whenever we choose the verb for this question, it's going to be the present tense verb in this lesson. We don't need ing, we don't need past tense, it's the present tense. Next, let's look at how we can answer these questions. In today's lesson, we are going to be answering each question using an indefinite adverb of frequency. Okay, it sounds really complicated, but it's actually not very difficult at all. So an indefinite adverb of frequency are going to be words like I'm going to show you in a second. Now we're going to start with the highest adverb of frequency, which is always. Now always is basically about 100%. Now I'm going to put a percentage next to each word. Now this is not a perfect guide, but this will give you a great idea of how we can use these words. So let's look at the list of indefinite adverbs of frequency that we will use in today's lesson. So if you look up here, the very top is always, 100%. Next, below that, we've got usually. Now, usually could be between 80 and 90%. After that, we have often. Okay, often is going to be about 70%. After often, we have sometimes. Sometimes will be about 50 to 60%. Next, we have occasionally. Occasionally, we could say is about 40%. After that, we have seldom. Seldom is about 20%. After seldom, we could say rarely or hardly ever. Both of these are about 10 to 20%. And finally, at the very bottom, we've got never. Never is 0%. Now, this is a good guideline for you to use. These percentages are not perfect, but you can get a good idea of the frequency of how we do something or how often we do something. So whenever we want to use these adverbs of frequency, these indefinite adverbs of frequency, they are going to go before the main verb. So I study English. Study is the verb, so I put the word before the verb. So I often study English. I sometimes study English. I always study English. Now, if I make a how often question that is using the be verb, for example, if my question is, how often are you late for school? How often are you late for school? In this situation, because I'm using a be verb, then the adverb of frequency is going to go after the be verb. So my answer would be, I am never late for school. I am never late for school. So never, which is the adverb, goes after the be verb. If it's another verb, please put it before. If it's the be verb, please put it after. Okay, so that brings us to the active part of this lesson. And this is a bonus active lesson because we will be able to actually make questions and answer them. So you have 2 chances to speak for every question. In the next part, I am going to put some words up here. Maybe I'll put some pictures. And first, I'd like you to make a how often question. After you make the question, then I'll give you some more information and you can answer the question. Okay, first situation. If we look at the screen here, we've got a gym. We've got a picture of a gym. And if we go to the gym, what do we do at the gym? We exercise. Okay, so we see the verb exercise. And the subject here is you. So I want you to make a how often do you question. Right? What's your question? My question is, how often do you exercise? How often do you exercise? Now, we must answer this question. And let's look, we've got a percentage here. Do you guys remember what word we use for this percentage? So the percentage is 20%. Right? What's your answer? My answer is, I rarely exercise. I rarely exercise. So at about 20%, I could say rarely or hardly ever. Okay, situation number 2. If you look up here, we've got a picture. What is this picture? It's a piano. So we have to think of the verb that goes with piano. And again, we're going to be saying you. So how often do you? What's your question? My question is, how often do you play the piano? How often do you play the piano? All right, we're not done. Next, let's answer this question. We've got a percentage here, 50%. What's your answer? My answer is, I sometimes play the piano. I sometimes play the piano. All right, situation number 3. Look at the picture. What do you see? All right, I see a vacuum. I see a vacuum. What's the verb that we use for vacuum? What's your question? Again, we're going to be doing you. My answer is, how often do you vacuum? All right. In this situation, vacuum is a noun and it's a verb. So, how often do you vacuum? Now, what's your answer? If we look at the percentage here, we've got 70%. My answer is, I often vacuum. I often vacuum. Okay, this is a great time for me to ask you, if you like this video, if you like these lessons, please subscribe to the channel. It's completely free. It will be a great help for me. Give me a thumbs up and hit the notification bell so you know when I post my next video, which is usually daily. So make sure you keep watching all my videos and study hard. Situation number 4. Let's look at the picture up here. What do you see? I see an airplane. So what's the verb I'm going to use for this picture? What is the how often question? And look, it's a man. So the subject is going to change. It's not you. What's your question? My question is, how often does he travel? How often does he travel? And let's look at the answer. Look at the percentage. We've got 0%. What's your answer? My answer is, he never travels. He never travels. All right, situation number 5, the very last situation that we're going to use today. Look at the picture up here. What do you see? I see a movie theater. I see a movie theater. So I want you to think of the verb that goes with movie theater. And if you notice, we've got she, we've got a girl. So our question now changes. What's the question you will make? My question is, how often does she go to the movies? How often does she go to the movies? And let's look at the percentage here. We've got 80%. What's your answer? My answer is, she usually goes to the movies. She usually goes to the movies. Okay, so how did you do with all of those situations? If you were unsure of some of the questions, if you're still a little bit confused, just go back, rewatch the explanation, and try the situations again. If you had different questions, please leave them down in the comment section and I will check them. There's more than one question, so don't worry if yours are different than mine. Again, if you like this video, please do me a great big favor and subscribe to this channel. It's completely free, so do it now. Give me a thumbs up and hit the notification bell. I am always posting videos, so make sure you look out for those as well. And until the next video, see ya. Thank you all for watching this lesson. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you have any lesson requests, please let me know in the comment section down below. And don't forget, subscribe to this channel, give me a thumbs up, and hit the notification bell. So until the next lesson, see ya.